All right, everybody, we're going down this street called Cavalcade, which is Cashmere Garden, and we want to thank everybody for all the people who related to that Cashmere Garden video, over 26,000 people. And right now, there used to be a grocery store called TV, and we're right here on the corner of Cavalcade and Hoffman. This is still part of Cashmere Garden, but we're going to a place they call what they call North Forest, y'all. That's the name of the place we're going to, North Forest. In case you want to know about North Forest, that's one of the first places that blacks were staying at. We known it as Settegast. That's what we know. But right now we're going to the famous place of North Forest, which we know it as one of the first black spots that blacks was living in, Settegast, the home of the B.C. Elmos High School. All right, everybody, we're on the corner of Homestead and 610. Remember I told you everything inside of 610 was part of Houston. We on the outside of 610, so this was not part of Houston. It was part of Harris County, but it was not part of Houston. This was considered as North Forest. And it wasn't Homestead, didn't come out this far. All this was woods. That's why they named it Scenic Woods, because this was going towards Trinity Garden. Right now, you are now in the North Forest. On the other side where Weaver Road is Trinity Garden, and it was part of the Garden Part community. But right now, this is the beginning of North Forest. And this is where nothing but white stayed out here. The only place black stayed out here was Settegast. And when they built Scenic Woods, it was not built for black people, it was built for white people. And we're gonna go down there in 1964 when they first developed Scenic Woods, in 1964. And when it was developed for white people only. But as we go down here, Lay Road, that's the reason why it changed name from Weaver Road to Lay Road. Because see, when you was there on Weaver Road, you was part of Trinity Garden. Remember the garden community? No, Houston annexed Trinity Garden and Cashmere Garden in 1940. But in 1950, they annexed North Forest. And that's where we at now, North Forest. Now, when we turn here on Wayside, this is where all the black people stayed at. They call Settegast. There you go. See that sign? What that sign say? Welcome to Settegast. Boy, I ain't gonna tell you nothing wrong in Houston. Y'all want this y'all want this history? I want to give it to you. You seen the sign say, welcome to Settegast. Settegast was nothing but black people stayed out in Settegast, and it was the country. That's right. Everything, they didn't have no running water. All you seen out here was people that was farmers and people that was keeping up with chickens and hogs and cows. They didn't even have cars out here until the early 50s. All these people used horse and buggies. This was the original black people right out here in Settegast. And you're going down Wayside here. We're gonna take a left right here, and we're gonna go down to the most popular street other than Wayside was a street called Eastland. Right now we're turning off of Wayside onto Birmingham. And we're heading down. This is Settegast. Welcome everybody to Settegast. This is one of the first spots that blacks were living in out here before they moved into Scenic Woods. As we go down Birmingham, off of Wayside. Welcome everybody to Settegast. And we're going to show you when blacks started moving out there, and we're going to do the history on Homestead and Scenic Woods. You know, this is some untold history. We're going to Eastland. Eastland is one of the busiest streets, and we're turning right here on Eastland. And we're going to go out of Eastland, because all this was considered a Settegast. And black folks lived out here, but blacks don't live out here no more. It's not exclusive blacks. You still got blacks living out here, but at one time it was 100% blacks out here. And as you can see, we're going down Pernod Road, off of Eastland. See all of this. Look how deep those lands. See how deep that property is. See how deep those property is. Look here. Look how deep that property is. Because see, all these people was farmers. They raised their own crops out here. They went and sold their crops out here. They had horses and mules, chickens, hogs. They had it all out here in Settegast. And this was always predominantly black neighborhood. Now that's an old house out here in Settegast we're gonna show you. See how those houses are built on bricks? Okay, those are the houses that was out here in Settegast when blacks were staying out here. Those are some old houses. See how the house is sitting on the bricks? Okay, we're gonna turn on Tommy because we got so much history out here. Because we got to cover Scenic Woods. All right, everybody, we're on the corner of Lay Road and East Houston Road, and we're going over to show you where John Osteen, the father of Joel Osteen, and where Lakewood Church got started. Right up in here. There it is. This is where Joel Osteen got his start. His dad came out here and his mother and helped build this church called the Oasis of Love, and it was called Lakewood. That's why you got Lakewood Church right now. This is the original Lakewood Church before Joel Osteen took over from his father. Joel Osteen was a cameraman right here at this particular church, and you can see how big they had did with this church. As you can see, this is the original Lakewood Church where Joel Osteen was the cameraman for his dad at this church. His dad, Reverend John Osteen, and the name of the church was the Oasis of Love. And all of this is what John Osteen bought, and his congregation bought all this land. At one time they had just a little shack when him and his wife first started. And when they got through, this is the land they had called Lakewood, the Oasis of Love. At one time, all of this was considered as Settegast. Black people were living all back up in here. And this is why we're showing you this history, because you never would know this. And this is part of Settegast. And Settegast was part of a town that was called North Forest. And when they had Settegast, it was for blacks only. Blacks could not stay on the other side of thing. You know, all of this was considered, and you can see the railroad tracks over there, because a lot of blacks in that street, Eastland. Remember I showed you Eastland? This is what Eastland is in at. Right up in here. And all this used to be Settegast. See how deep those lots are? And all of this used to be black people living all back in here. You still see some older black people like that lady there. See, these used to be predominantly blacks. And this used to be Settegast. And this is where all the blacks stayed at. Blacks did not stay over there on Mesa Road. Nor was black when they built that new spot over there called Scenic Woods. It was not built for blacks. It was built for whites. Blacks got into subdivision in the early 70s. 73, 74, blacks was beginning to move out there. But we're finna go through this and show you. Now you can see that Lakewood Church, that same Lakewood Church in Joel Osteen, where they got started right out here in Settegast. At the church I showed you, the Oasis of Love. And the pastor was John Osteen, Joel Osteen's father. And as you see, we are right up here on Wayside and Lay Road. And Lay Road will lead you into East Houston, and soon you go to East Houston, Pastor John Osteen and the Oasis of Love had that whole big old block. And Joel Osteen was the cameraman for his dad. But after his dad passed, his mother wanted him to come in and start preaching. And that's when he started preaching, and the rest of it is history when he bought the Compact Center. All of this was considered as white area. But when blacks started moving out here, the whites at North Forest School District did not want blacks to go to Smiley. They were forced to go to Smiley. So this is how this used to look. See all them woods and forests? See, this was a forest. That's why it was North Forest. Before Houston annexed it in 1950, it was called North Forest. And you can see it was a forest. And when they did integrate in 1968, and Smiley had to have a lot of black kids that were living over here, was going to Smiley, and the parents was complaining because there was too many blacks at Smiley that lived out here in Scenic Woods. So they built them a school in 1972. And there it is, Forest Brook. And the reason why North Forest built Forest Brook, to help take the blacks out of Smiley High School, which was a white school. All right, everybody, we're going to you live right here in Scenic Woods. Yes, we made it. I got 10 folks live out here in Scenic Woods. The Kennedys, my cousins, they came from Brookshire, Texas, and they moved out here in the 80s. But we're talking about the beginning of Scenic Woods when it was all white. And blacks they built this community out here in Scenic Woods in 1964. But like I told you, in 1965, they had to let blacks come out here and stay. But blacks didn't start coming out here and staying until the late 70s. And right now, we're going to go through Homestead, which was the main drag in Scenic Woods for white people when they built this community in 1964. And when blacks inherited and came out here, this is what they seen. Right here on the corner of Homestead and Tidwell was called the Homestead Drive-In. Right there on that corner was the Homestead Drive-In. Let's go down Homestead as blacks moved out here in the late 70s. Man, this was the bomb. When I tell you this was the bomb, white people didn't want to come from out here. A lot of white people moved out here in Scenic Woods. When it first developed, they came out of Cashmere Garden, running away from blacks. Because blacks was not living out here in Scenic Woods in 1964. Blacks could not buy a home out here in 1964. It was for whites only. Blacks couldn't buy a home out here until 1965, and then they still didn't sell it to them. Blacks didn't start moving out here until the late 60s, 69 and 70. And by the 1980s, blacks had taken over. But let's go back to here. Let's go to this famous spot here, man. This was the beautiful Kmart. This was a shopping center. Kmart. Let's go to the shopping center. But all this used to be Kmart. Look at it. They built a shopping center right here. This used to be a big shopping center. Right there was a big Kmart. Everything you wanted, you could buy right there out of Kmart. A village is what this was. North Forest Village. Because it wasn't a city yet, because they didn't have the buses. And later on, they bought the Pioneer Bus Company came out here. Houston Bus Company at that time was Rapid Transit. It went from Rapid Transit to Hugh Train, and from Hugh Train to Metro. That's how it went down. And Houston did not want to come out here and drive no buses out here in the black folks neighborhood, which out here was a bus they called the Homestead bus, which mostly people drive right on the Homestead bus was white people. But the other bus lines that they had out here was Settegast bus line, and they had another bus line out here that was called the Langley bus. See, all of these buses, the Pioneer buses, Metro got them today, but they calling them something else, but they still telling you where they used to go. All of them buses used to be called Pioneer buses, and only black people rode the Pioneer buses. One thing about the Pioneer buses, you didn't have to worry about sitting in the back. And the Pioneer buses never had an air condition. And right now we're going down Parker Road. And all of these areas right here was developed in 1964. And it was a brand new subdivision built for white people only when they built this subdivision. And Parker Road, we turned on Parker Road and going down Kelburn. And we're going down Kelburn all the way to a street, one of the main streets out here in Parker. Another main street out here is Langley Road. And as we go down this street here, we passing all of the streets, and all of this was developed for white people in 1964. But by the 1970s, black was moving in here, and by the 1980s and 1990s, blacks had taken over this area. You couldn't find a white person out here nowhere to be found. And there it is. All of this was considered as white people neighborhood, and it's called Scenic Woods. The reason why they call it Scenic Woods, when they came out here and built this in 1964, all of this was nothing but woods. And the woods came from the forest. And there's a street called Goa. All right? And we want to dedicate this here out to the Kennedy family. You know, my cousin asked me, when is I'm going to do something about Scenic Wood. Well, this is the history. Hattie Kennedy for Scenic Wood. You and Chanel. Chanel, this is for y'all. And also, Walter Jr., we call him brother. All this used to be white folks' neighborhood, y'all. For some of you who was raised up out here in the 80s and the 90s, all of this was white folks' neighborhood when they built it in the late 60s, 64. And blacks didn't start moving out here until 69. And it was only a handful of blacks. And when they did move out here before 1968, all of these black kids who stayed out here couldn't go to Smiley, so they had to go to Kashmir. Some history for you. That's right. They could not go to Smiley. Smiley didn't integrate until 1968. And all the blacks that moved out here in Scenic Wood before 1968, which wasn't but a handful, they had to go to Kashmir High School. And the Kashmir High School was located over there where Key Middle School is today, right down the corner of Hirsch and Kelly.